So, I have a bit of a spooky confession to make. Promise you won't laugh. I didn't even know I'd be making this announcement, but, I want to make a more oral video. I know, it's shocking. It's just truly revolutionary activity. If the last year or two of the great state of Sona gold rush wasn't enough to deter me, surely there has to be something there, right? It's truly fascinating how quickly such a surge in attention and admiration could spring up for this harmless little cartoon. I remember watching this shit at like 1:37 in the morning. And then eventually looking forward to the day when we get to really dig into this shit. But somehow, like within the last year or two, they put the good word of the Lord into the water or something. That's why we have 9,000 retrospectives on this show now. And I can tell that everyone that speaks about this show is particularly passionate about it. But for as comprehensive as all of them strive to be, it always feels like they're missing something. And I've been doing research on this thing on and off for years now. I'm by no means an expert on the universe of Moral Orel. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something that is just not completing the picture here. Shocking, because a lot of these end up being like full dissections of every episode and the scenes and like the references and everything. But no, there's something else that is just like not being fully addressed. I'm not sure what that is. Coincidentally, I kind of just stumbled my way into marathoning the subject of this video, and I'm kind of reevaluating if maybe this was the secret sauce all along. Much like the namesake of the show itself, Mary Shelley's Frankenhole sprung up out of a hole in the ground in the summer of 2010. As far as I can tell, this idea was pitched haphazardly, and the opportunity to pitch itself was lent entirely on the laurels of Dino Stamatopoulos' previous project becoming one of the most important in Adult Swim history. The idea of Victor Frankenstein hanging around a bunch of historical figures and legendary movie monsters is low stakes, but it comes from a sincere place of just appreciating the genre and wanting to explore that a bit more in a medium that he enjoyed working in, and it also happened to be something that the executives were just kind of looking for. Fascinating. Production-wise, the series was put together on a relatively tight timeline. Tonally, the show, it'd probably be liable to give you a bit of whiplash, even if you are used to the true depths of the previous show, but the technicals are always gonna draw me back into the fray. Like, if there's one thing you gotta geek out over when it comes to this show, it has to be how it looks. In hindsight, I think I would have expected to see a project that really embraces that papier-mâché look a lot sooner, and it's definitely not the first one to do it in the history of history, but the way that it was utilized here, it just activates the almonds for me. There's a level of detail thrown into these props that I don't think would truly be appreciated otherwise. And though the sets themselves feel relatively small, the few that we get, it well establishes the world that was set up here, right? Generic Eastern European village number 746 has a lot of charm here. I don't think I go out of my way to recommend series enough, and that's definitely on me. It's probably not the first thing on my mind when I'm complaining about the state of the industry or whatever. If I had to try to recommend this one, it would be a bit more difficult than usual. You know, like there's so few living creators that have more than one or two cartoon series under their belt. It's like we can compare them to each other now. And surprise, surprise, the easiest way to try and put Frankenhole into a box that I could label was by comparing it to these two, because of course it was. Why not? The first series in their respective categories, monumental achievements for their studios, definitely changed their small slice of the industry, hopefully for the better, but I guess time will tell. Known for being imaginative, very witty, like inventive, definitely threw a few curveballs in there. Second series, I would say, probably seen as a little more ambitious, made a point to separate themselves from, I guess, what would be considered the source material. We can get into Frankenhole's connection in a little bit, but I would argue are a bit misunderstood. You know, they're the accidental middle children of their families, and because of that, they are pigeonholed into an idea of, like, having that potential, but maybe not really achieving it. The third entries, I don't even know where they came from. Honestly, they probably wouldn't exist in most timelines, but you know what? They're having fun. They're doing alright, you know? Just a bunch of goofy goobers having fun. So, you know, I can respect it. And that's a pretty arbitrary label to try and slap onto this project, but I do think it carries a bit more significance here. I managed to finish this show in just a few hours, you know, I just had it on while I was doing other stuff. But I was indeed watching with my eyes. I know it's shocking. And I did find things to appreciate, you know. I don't think it's as dour as the lighting would convey, but I didn't laugh that much. I acknowledge the jokes. Technically, there are jokes, indeed. It's just it did not compel me, which is surprising. Again, if you're like familiar with Dino's work at all, you know that there's a very clear and present edge that is being balanced there. Out of his 3 shows, Orel is definitely the one that tries to make that balance work the most. Frankenhole very much strikes me as a rebound project, similar to Milo, except unlike there where, you know, there was like a serialized storyline that was being balanced with aliens and space lasers and blackjack and hookers and all that. This seemed like it was a bit more low stakes, a bit more low brow as a result. It really is just an excuse to hobnob with a bunch of random historical figures and write jokes around that. The first episode is literally about Lyndon B. Johnson trying to catch some tail right after Kennedy's body got shot. You know, the corpse ain't even cold yet. He's trying to cash in as fast as possible.
Step aside, Quaker Oats. Got a president of the United States shot in the head here.
Not my problem.
Copycat.
The 4th episode is about Hitler trying to be, I guess, like, indifferent to Jews. He does not strive to love and respect. He would like to mildly tolerate. The 8th episode is about Gandhi. They finally got him out of the freezer, huh? But it's about Gandhi being turned into a vampire in the midst of his hunger strike. The 7th episode is about Ron Howard molesting a younger version of himself. I don't even remember what the reason. It's a lot. The 6th episode is about Thomas Jefferson trying to get game with, like, the slaves that he is continually abusing. I mean, for lack of a better word, the climax comes to a head when he has to go to Obama's time and ask him for his dick. There's an unaired episode that was repurposed largely as part of episode 2, where Mother Teresa just ends up giving it up, like, all the time. Anytime anyone throws her puppy dog eyes, like, she cannot help but do what they ask. And the last minute and a half is her fucking the Invisible Man, much to his surprise, while Frankenstein's monster watches solemnly through a window, because he's the only one that cannot summon the puppy dog eye. Like, he's just so ugly, she won't even do shit for him. I think it would be remiss to be dismissive here. I mean, this is more or less what everyone signed up for, right? I mean, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that Moral Orel itself is an acquired taste, even in the very, very beginning when it was lighter and softer and less about unpacking really, really hairy dad drama. It certainly relies more on the characters and the character actors behind them to bring these premises to life. You're gonna hear a fair amount of mainstays from the previous show, and at times you may even be surprised as to who appears next. The 2nd season emphasizes this a bit more, because as per the executives on board, they really wanted to hone in on a family dynamic, you know, that really lovely, wholesome dynamic that Frankenstein has in his loveless marriage with his wife and his 2, like, elderly, immortal children. I mean, they're all immortal at this point, but, you know, this is good old-fashioned family values that we've been missing for so long. To some extent, I would say the 2nd season is a bit easier to get into, but I'm not sure if I would attribute that just to me having consumed half of the series up to that point, or the premise is genuinely becoming more of my bag. I mean, the humor doesn't get any less crude. One episode in the 2nd season is a literal dick measuring contest, and the edgiest episodes typically are written solely by Dino. I would be remiss to gloss over the episode where Ken Jeong plays every single character in there, and the episode culminates in him making a speech after a long performance as a racist Godzilla, making supposedly subtle commentary on when a member of one's own race makes stereotypical jokes about oneself or something. I don't know. I thought it was alright. I remember it being funnier when I was younger, but not a total loss at this point. But again, I think those production elements are really what drew me into wanting to talk about it, even just for a little bit, because Frankenhole very much feels like it was granted as a matter of being a weird consolation prize for putting up with the network after years of weird and honestly kind of brain dead decisions. They were able to try and leverage it in order to tie into the previous show and maybe wrap up some loose ends over there. It's a series that they kind of had to make in a slapdash fashion that still turned out pretty impressive work at points, and could get kind of elaborate with its own theming and vision. And the main character himself kind of ends up mirroring his creator in some way. As he's characterized in this series, Frankenstein is a hamster on a treadmill. He is constantly chasing after respect or adulation or credit for his wily schemes that don't really go anywhere. And he's constantly referred to as if he doesn't really have an empathetic bone in his body, you know? No self-awareness, no guts, no glory, no intellectual bravery or emotional capacity. But deep down inside, there is something buried in there. He is challenged a lot because he is incorrect to some degree, but he is also underestimated and surrounded by people that are just not getting the vision. They're just not here for it. I doubt it was really conceived to be an intricate peek behind the curtain, but a lot of things end up doing that despite us not aiming towards that anyway. I think even people that have known Dino for years probably don't really feel like they have the greatest handle on him, like as a person, as a creator, or a father, or whatever have you. And Frankenhole kind of speaks to maybe the incompleteness that we tend to feel as people. You know, there's always like a couple puzzle pieces missing that we do have to find. People come to this guy for help all the time. Like, he's no different than like a Rick Sanchez, but I think he's at least a little more interesting in this context. I don't know, maybe I'm just yapping. I don't know. Go watch the show. It's only 20 episodes. They're like 11 minutes apiece. You will finish it in a night if you really want to. Or you can watch High School USA. I'm cool with that too. What, you thought this was just an April Fool's joke? Fuck no. This show is the greatest thing that has ever graced humanity. You will not believe that this is a gift that God himself has wept over the stove making. And in this 19 and a half video essay, I will...